Right, and welcome to MTEL today. Working on this Vectra. This is one of the 19 CDIs. I think it's a Z19 like DTH or something like that. Basically, I'm fixing the swirl flaps today. Basically, they're on the manifold. They had this design fault where they had this little bar that goes across the top of the manifold. And they got this variable port system. Basically, what happens is the manifold gets full of all the carbon and junk, clogs these flat valves up, and then there's this little bar that goes across the top, and it pops the little bar off and then flags up loads of engine warning lights and everything. So today what we're doing is we're pulling the flaps out and we're blanking them off. I've already started the job so far. I've already taken the airbox out. That's quite easy. So get the airbox out, it's just Jubilee clip up here, one on the airbox. This little connector, just unconnect it, unhook that out of the airbox, and then literally you just pull it up at the back, slide it over, and just unhook it. So I've already taken that off. I've taken the main boost hose off as well to the engine, which comes from here to here basically. So that's off, I've already got that off. I've got the, it's called like an expansion pot basically. It's a dampener, and basically sits on the back of the engine, a pipe comes around over the top, drops into the back of this and then comes back and goes to the control valve which controls the turbo. I'm not actually going to put this back on because in later models these weren't actually fitted and they leak and cause running issues, so I'm going to leave this off and just rig this straight into this valve down here. I've also taken off this thing which is on the back of the block. Now this is quite technical, this little thing. Basically what it is this is an oil swirl pot basically. So the breathed engine gases from the actual engine, which have oil vapour, go into this thing. It separates the oil out of the air which is coming out of the engine and then drops it back down to the sump. Now this is fitted around the back of the block down there. Now to get this off, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. You can't take this thing off as well because in their wisdom Vauxhall have put a lovely bolt right around the back, so you theoretically can't unbolt this from the bracket. I took the 2 bolts out the top, wouldn't come off because there's a bolt around the back and you just can't get it off whilst it's on the bracket, whilst the bracket's attached to the engine. Also to get this out, there's 2 coolant pipes which run around the back of the engine, metal ones. They're bolted onto a bracket which bolts onto the top of the starter motor, and you have to take them 2 bolts out, and there's a bolt around the side here on the thermostat housing. You have to unbolt that as well so you can push the pipes back. Then once you push the pipes back you can then unhook it out of the back of the engine basically, and there's a couple of cables connected to it which you've got to pop out and unhook so you can fish it out. This is quite a technical job, this job as well, so if you're not a very skilled mechanic, I would suggest taking it to a garage and letting them do it, because it is very in depth and there's a lot that needs to be done. Right, so that's off. I've also got the battery out, so I'm going to leave the oil filter on, the diesel filter on, which is up here. I've also taken the EGR valve off, which is here. So, which is here. This mounts to the back of the head up here. Now, quite simple. This is held on by 6 bolts. You've got 4 10mm headed bolts here, which are like M6s, which bolt it to the manifold. And then you've got 2 bolts which drop down through here and attach the actual EGR pipe to the bottom of it, basically. Very accessible. Just go unclip that connector, undo them bolts, pop it off the back of the engine. Nice little simple way to get that off. So if you've got to take an EGR valve off your engine and you've got one of these and it looks like this, these are very easy to take off. So if you ever have problems with your own EGR, do it yourself basically, because these come off really easy and they're very accessible. So that's off as well. Right, so there we go. That's everything that's been done so far. My next job, I'm going to reposition the camera so it's coming straight down over the engine bay so you can see what I'm doing. My next job is I'm going to take this fuel accumulator off, which sits on the back of the engine, On these you've got a fuel pressure control valve which actually is mounted to the actual fuel rail. I'm going to take the pipe off of that, and then I've got this small vac pipe, which is, well, it's not a vac pipe, it's a leak off pipe, which then goes back to this accumulator, and then there's a pipe coming off the top of the diesel pump. Because on this, when you do this, you have to take the diesel pump off. It's got to come off. You cannot get the manifold off whilst it's in place. Just theoretically impossible, because the manifold is on studs and it's nutted, and unfortunately to get it off you've got to pull it off the studs, and theoretically with the pump there can't do it. So you've got to take the diesel pump off, and to get the diesel pump off as well off of this engine you've got to take the cambelt off. So that means you've got to basically line all the TDC marks up, which is your top dead centre marks, so all the markings on the crane, on the actual engine, line it all up. If you've got a pin kit, you can basically take these plugs out which are on the engine and basically lock it in place so it doesn't move. That is the best way to do it, but I'm not going to do it with a pin kit. I'm just going to line it up, line all the marks up, Tipex it up, and then I'm going to basically pull the belt off, and then I'll go from there. But also as well, you've got to drop the coolant as well on this, because this pipe here, which comes up here, and then it's on this metal pipe which runs across the top of the inlet and it returns back to the coolant bottle, is a expansion pipe. Basically it gets the air out the cylinder head and it runs through the manifold. So you've got to drop the coolant no matter what, because if you don't and you take it off, all that'll happen is water will go everywhere, and where it's so close to the inlet as well, you'll probably fill the engine full of water. Bad news. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset now, and I'm going to start taking bits off. Steady. Right, next job now is I want to take this fuel accumulator off. Basically all it does is the diesel comes out of the actual return pipe from the pump, comes into the back of it, and then we also have a pressure relief point which is here, which is this pressure release valve, which comes back to the accumulator, and also the leak off pipe also pipes but up round here into the accumulator, and then the return comes around here, goes back to the tank. Right, now that fuel accumulator is now off. Next what we got is we've got this main power harness, your main loom. Comes round here from the back of the engine, loops up, comes around here, runs around here basically, and it's all bolted onto the top of the manifold and clipped onto the actual expansion pipe. So we'll unclip this for a start, and do that. You've got like a little tab, so you push the tab down, this part of the tab, and then pull the top bit out, pop, and then she just unhooks like that. Right now, so the accumulator's off, this pipe's now off. I'm going to disconnect the feed to the diesel pump, which I've unclipped, whop that off. You've got to remember as well which way round they went. I've also disconnected this pipe, which goes to the actual, there's another pressure control valve which is on the back of the pump. Now basically we've got to take this feed line off now to the pump, which is here and here. 17mm this side, looks like 14 the other. So they're all off. Right, so next, right, what I'm going to do now, I think now I'm going to take the wheel off and basically jack it up, get the belly pan off, so I can then start stripping the belt off basically. Once I've got the belt off, I can then take the pump off and then I can extract this manifold. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right. I'll come back, I'll get the camera back on once I've got that off. I'll show me dealing with the actual cam belt itself. Okay, now I've repositioned, so camera's pointing up underneath the motor. There's the tap right there. So this here is, by the looks of it, a boost hose, which is looping around to the intercooler, and it sits right there, right there. Basically it's got a flat. Normally sometimes you can get them with your fingers and turn them. Yep, this one's turning. Now basically I've got my bucket there as well. Let's see if we can get my arm around. Oh, there it goes. As you turn it, you've got to pull on it as well. Whoop. Right, she's hanging out. Back over there. Take the cap off, and then she should come out. Yummy. There she goes. Right, okay, right, we've drained the fluid out now, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start taking the cam belt casing apart basically, because we've got to take the cam belt off to get the diesel pump out. Right, so first of all we got basically, I'll move this little bit out of the way, Allen key bolt, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2/13s. There's also, we've got to take this mount off, so what I might do is fire this mount off first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my jack, I'm going to jack the engine up basically underneath. I'm going to jack the engine up underneath, put a wooden block between the actual jack and the sump to spread the load so I don't crack the sump. Then I'm going to lift it up a little bit, and then I'm basically going to get my impact gun and I'm going to fire the engine mount off. So that's my first job, that's what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to get to that, and then we'll come back once I've done that. Right, there you go. Tensioner's now, the cover's now off, so we've got full access to the cam belt. Now we've got to do is slacken off this tensioner and then work out how to re-tighten it. If I remember correctly, this was a proper pain to do this last time. Right, I've now got this, I've got the nut off the diesel pump pulley. I fired it off with my gun, but if you ain't got a gun, you could put your screwdriver through one of the holes, and there's a lug round about here, and you can hold it in place whilst you crack it off. Now, the pulley itself's on a taper, and there's a wood rough key. Now, normally, you need a special tool that bolts into the pulley here, and the nut comes through the middle, and then basically you bolt the nut up in the middle and it pulls the pulley off. Other option, the way I did it, is get a lever bar. Get a lever bar. Put a lever bar behind here. Give it a little bit of a pull. You don't want to be like proper going at it. Just a little bit of a pull, and then get a hammer and just get a little tap on the face. Mind the edges, just give a little dink, and the shock will release it. And then basically then turn it round and just slowly but surely wiggle it off basically, and then the pulley will come off like so, and then just leave the actual stub hanging out like that. Now basically there's a wood rough key in here, which is here, and this is loose, and when you take that off you've got to make sure that don't fall off. So the best option for that is to get a bit of tape. And the tape is right, I ain't got tape. So what we're going to do, we're going to take it out. Right, there we go. One on the floor. Somewhere. There we go. Here it is. Yeah, basically just take this little wood rough key out, put it somewhere safe. The last thing you want that is to fall out and disappear down the engine somewhere. Right. Next part of the job, now we've got this, we've got the pulley off, we've got to take the diesel pump off now. That's just held on by 3 13mm bolts, nuts, one there, one round there, and one down there. So what we're going to do is I've got to take the 2 off, which are the most awkward to get off, and then the last one I'll take off will be the top one. Right, so Right, I've now undone the actual bolts, the nuts that secure the manifold to the engine. In total there was 9. There was 9 of them, which are these, and they're 12 mils. So I've taken them off, and now we've got to basically manoeuvre this manifold out and off of these studs. But it's whether or not we've got the room. It feels like something's hitting. Right, okay. We're in the process of taking this stud out now, which holds the diesel pump in. We've got to take it out because it's stopping the manifold from coming out, because the manifold's hitting it when I'm trying to remove it. Now you can either use a stud extractor, or you can do what I've done, where you get 2 nuts, you screw them both on, and then you lock them together, and then use the back one to undo the stud. So they grab the stud, and then you can get yourself a spanner and wind the stud out, basically, like so. Right, I've got the stud out now, which come out of there. That's out. You can see where I've double nutted it, and I've locked them together to undo it. And you undo it with the most inner nut, and unwind it, basically. I'm going to leave the nuts on that because I've got to re-screw that stud in. Now, theoretically, now we should be able to get this manifold off. Let's go for it. Get that off. All the way, come on, Betsy. Come on. Come on. Oh, top just falling out. And we are off. That's off. Right, now we've got to get it out, which is just as interesting as anything. Right, so come on, come on. Easiest way. Right, through the middle. Come on, all the way, all the way. I've got a pipe stuck there, like. Come on, over there, under there. Yeah, we're out. What? And there you have it. There's the manifold removed. All good.